Good afternoon. My name is Jen Rhodes. I am the Assistant Director of the Textile Design program at Thomas Jefferson University. I know we have many alumni tuning in today, so I'm also proud to say that I am an alum from the Philadelphia Textile class of 1996. And I'm excited to welcome you today to our very first webinar ever. This is Textile Design. Today's presentation, Textile Design Inspiration, The Path Forward, is the first installment in our 5-part series this week. I'm pleased to introduce today's panelist, Marcia Weiss. At Thomas Jefferson University, Marcia is the Director of the Textile Design programs and the Director of the Fashion and Textiles Futures Center. An alum of Textiles class of 1983, Marcia's had a long and exciting career in the textile industry and is an active member of the Handweavers Guild of America, as well as an accomplished fiber artist. In these frightening and uncertain times, it can be hard to stay motivated and focused, and we hope Marcia's presentation today will provide some inspiration and jumpstart your creativity. When Marcia's talk concludes, we will have time for Q&A, for which I'll be serving as the moderator. Throughout the presentation, please feel free to use your Q&A button to send the questions to me, and at the appropriate time, Marcia will be answering them. As well, you may use the chat button to say hello, introduce yourselves, let us know who's out there watching. But please note, all microphones will be muted throughout our presentation today. And without any further ado, Marcia, I turn it over to you.
Jen, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. So I'm very pleased to see alumni, students, faculty, and friends joining us today. It certainly has been a year of challenges in many aspects of our lives. One of the ways that we as designers move forward is to always be looking toward the future. My goal is to share our perspective on a path forward through the lens of the creative design process that we teach within textile design. Traditionally, meaning prior to March of this year, you would find our students and faculty working in collaborative spaces on campus in the Fashion and Textiles Futures Center. These are open, flexible, light-filled maker spaces. For those of you who haven't been on campus or haven't visited recently, I thought I would start this presentation by sharing a view into our spaces. It's a little peek into what campus looks like today. The heart of our studio culture resides in the International Textile Alliance Textile Design Studio. This space has floor and dobby looms, PASAP knitting machines, Macs and PCs, work tables, and a lot of yarn. Throughout this presentation, I will showcase the work created by our textile designers. The textile on the lower left, this is actually a jacquard woven textile, was created by Ananya Bevanakati in a collaboration with an industrial design student on a lamp that was featured at the International Contemporary Furniture Fair in New York City. A quick side note, the hand-woven experimental sample of Ananya's that was also shown on the first slide of this presentation. Our Center for Excellence in Digital Printing, as part of the Center for Excellence in Surface Imaging, includes a full cohort of digital printers for a range of textiles from cotton to silk and polyester. We also have a great screen printing lab available to our students. And the print design on the lower left was created by Maggie Kincaid. Anytime I bring industry guests in through our digital printing areas, I always say I think it's great that our students have access to this level of equipment as students. And frequently, industry guests say, we wish we had this equipment. We have amazing knit capabilities also, including Shimaseki, Stoll, and Santoni industrial equipment, as well as Stoll and Dubier hand flats. The neon accented performance knits highlighted here were created by Reagan Mariner. And the last image that I'm going to show you of our spaces is of our Center for Excellence in Woven Design. This is a view that showcases Summit and Staubli jacquards and our Dornier looms. The lovely jacquard woven was created by former student and current professor Becky Flax. So why do I show you this fantastic equipment and wonderful spaces to which we currently don't have access? Because in reality, The success of our students is not dependent on these great toys. I'd like to share a quote from Lee Adelcourt, the brilliant guru, the head of Trend Union. This was in an interview with Marcus Fairs in Design from June of this year. She was commenting on the positive impact that the current generation, that the pandemic could have on the current generation of students. Here's her quote. "It's very beautiful to see how they work. Don't forget that all the graduates in the world are in their rooms without machines, sometimes not even with the materials to make their work. And so they are super creative at this point, trying to find a solution. They will be trained like no other generation. They will be completely independent, very good at improvising their offer and their vision." So I think that speaks to what we are doing through the creative design process that we teach our students. So yes, we are very fortunate to teach, innovate, and collaborate in wonderful studios. And yes, we look forward to the time when we can be back together in these spaces. But if these last 4 months have shown us anything, it's that what we always say is true. And that is, we teach process, we expect great results. Much of what follows in this presentation was created off campus in the second half of the spring semester. When we think about the design process, it starts with some form of inspiration. This is true whether the inspiration comes from color and trend research, market evaluation, or historic artisanal textiles. Certainly, our students access a wealth of information online. However, they also have access to an amazing collection of textiles, garments, and accessories in our historic collection at the Design Center, which for those of you who might be alums from a different period, it was formerly the Goldie Paley Design Center on our East Falls campus. This is a study collection that holds 50,000 to 100,000 items from across the globe. On this slide, you see images of a heavily embellished Serbian vest on the left, a Dorothy Leibis textile in the center. Leibis worked with DuPont and pioneered the use of atypical materials for a variety of furnishings, and a colorful African kente cloth on the right. Our students have access to this collection to use in their original design research, which of course is an important skill for designers. It's notable that many wonderful images from the collection are available to the public through ArtStore, and please note the link on this slide. This will give you access to part of the collection that is publicly accessible. There are many times when inspiration is derived from what we learn from global cultures, techniques, and processes. These are images from a West African textile short course that I was fortunate enough to co-teach with our African studies expert. The gentleman on the left is an indigo dye expert in a village in Burkina Faso. And when we asked this gentleman that day at what age he started with the indigo dyeing, he pulled a young boy out of the crowd who was perhaps 7 or 8 and essentially said, "at this age." The narrow strip woven in the center was created on a loom such as the one shown on the right. It is remarkable the level of mastery, the level of skills that are necessary to create such beauty on relatively simple equipment. For any weavers who are participating and joining us today, instead of a back beam, what they use is the warp is stretched across the ground and held with a rock. So very simple equipment, really amazing textiles. Our students may be inspired by images that they've taken or that they source online. This slide shows lichen in Scotland on the left along the northwestern coast of Scotland, an indigo plant in Burkina Faso in the center, and arches created by Gaudi in Barcelona on the right. We also have a wonderful collection of printing woodblocks that are works of art in and of themselves. These 3, again, are part of our collection at the Design Center. They're all from Liberty of London, and they're all part of our study collection. Again, you can access some of this information through the JSTOR website. From inspiration, a concept is articulated. This is an example of a concept or inspiration board created by Courtney Locke. Courtney is one of our very recent alums. She completed the degree in May 2020, and we had virtual commencement yesterday. So congratulations to all of our very recent alums. This mid-century modern concept drove her capstone collection. And here you can see she was gathering imagery to speak to form, to speak to pattern, and to speak to palette for her collection. For the second concept board, this work by Ana Odiot reflects a strong tropical vibe. Ana is from Puerto Rico, and relocating to the island for the second half of the spring semester certainly positively impacted her work and positively influenced her work. And for our third concept or inspiration board, this is entitled Notation, and it was created by Isabel Ramos as a meditation on written language. So students are gathering images and thinking about all of the formal qualities of design, even in putting their boards together. How much air, how much white space, what's the graphic nature of the imagery, how is the palette working, how busy or how calm, how lyrical is the board itself. Once the concept is determined, students progress into the ideation phase. This is the part of the process that involves extensive sketchbook development. Here you can see part of the process undertaken by Sophia Turco in pursuing the idea of glitches. Sketchbook development likely includes research, imagery, drawing, painting, writing, collage, any combination of these things. And it can be in a physical sketchbook. As you can see, the two images on the upper right are images of actual sketchbook pages of Sophia's. So it could be in an actual sketchbook, or it might be a loose collection of papers. It depends a little bit on what the students are doing. But what this is the sketchbook development phase is a view into how a designer thinks through a problem or thinks through an opportunity. This slide highlights some of Isabel's notation ideation. Here you can see drawings that she created with various media. And again, her concept is notation. It's about written language. And when you start looking at this imagery, you understand the connection between how she's thinking through the problem and her concept. Erin McDermott shows a painterly illustrative approach to developing floral ideas. On this slide, you can see some color swatching, some pen and ink drawing, a bit of design research, perhaps that might be her muse in the center, and then a croquis, or the next step in the design process on the right, as she's thinking through what should this collection look like, what should this floral print design look like. And one last example of sketchbook work are these pages created by Kristen Tynan. Here you can see woven collages, yarn reelings, and writings to explore a concept. So each student finds their own way, their own process, but this is a really critical step in the creative design process. So hand in hand with the sketchbook work, we move into the croquis phase. This is the next step to further realizing one's ideas. This is the work of Sinead Cahill, and her collection is entitled Pink Coinage. On this slide, you can see some paper manipulations, some weaving, some working with wax, some paper making, and it's all centered around this one particular theme. So certainly color is a unifying element, but there's so much more to it conceptually to connect to the inspiration. Our students illustrated their creativity and flexibility both on and off campus. So these sketchbook pages on the left and the right of this slide were created by Heather Kelly. And then the center is a model that she created out of cardboard triangles. This was part of an architectural collaboration project. And Heather was able to explore formal and structural ideas out of a very simple and very accessible model. And for many of us, cardboard is something that we have had perhaps in excess in our homes over the last few months, as many of us have been ordering things online and things are shipped to us in boxes. So this was Heather's approach to creating a model out of a fairly simple and accessible material. And here again, a very simple, accessible material. These models that are exploring light and shadow as part of an architectural collaboration were created out of wax paper by Sinead Cahill. So a great material to use to look at translucency and transparency. Now these next two slides, this and the following, illustrate work that Kara Beckner created, again in the croquis phase, in her Ode to Houseplants. The color palette for this is inspired by Matisse's painting, The Goldfish. You can see the concept board in the upper left of the screen and a collection of woven swatches on the right. Most of these swatches on this slide were created while we were still on campus in spring. However, on this slide, once remote learning started, these are some examples of the kinds of swatches Kara created. She was working with fairly simplistic materials, fairly simplistic tools, and the work takes on a freedom based both on the equipment and also the materiality. It's notable that the woven swatches have seagrass that was woven into them, as this was a material that she had accessible. And then she did some over-dyeing of the sample on the right to further unite the diverse materials. The croquis development stage often alternates between work both within and out of the sketchbook. These images illustrate part of the process undertaken by Sabrina Pinello in her development of a rustic-inspired collection for home furnishings. You can see the wonderful collaged watercolor sketch in the center, and it's flanked by her wovens on each side. These wovens, the one on the right, I believe may have been created while we were still on campus. The one on the left was created on a much more experimental loom, didn't have some of the high-tech capabilities, but is wonderfully expressive and works very well with her collection. One last image of the croquis stage. It's notable that each of our students develops their own approach to the creative process. On this slide, you can see some of the steps that Hannah Beckett used in creating her thesis collection, Au Naturel. Here you see inspiration imagery on the upper left that very much informed her color palette. Sketches of her intended garments and her intended collection on the lower right. Details that are draped on dress forms on the upper right to work through some of the structural considerations. And then a pile of some of her samples, some of the development process on the lower left. From the croquis stage, we move into collection. So that is to say that each student embraces the design process to result in a collection. From conceptual inspiration to sketchbook ideation to croquis creation. It's an iterative process. Create, review, refine, resolve, curate. Here you can see a very large grouping of final samples from Isabel's notation collection. And if you can think back to her concept board, the palette, the formal design qualities, the rhythm, excuse me, all work very closely with these samples. You can see the definite pull all the way through. Katie Lutterschmidt pursued the same process in the creation of this woven collection. Here you can see image development and some of her collection samples. So on the upper left is her concept board. On the lower left, you can see the tools that she employed in creating this collection. So her loom was a piece of cardboard, which she put slits in and warped. She wove these in a tapestry form. Her watercolor drawing on the lower right, her watercolor painting on the lower right, was translated beautifully into the sample that's directly above it. So Katie embraced what she could do with more simplistic tools at home and created this wonderfully expressive collection around her concept. Students were very creative with managing without typical tools. Here, Gabriella de Blasio showcases her sophisticated comfort collection with the help of a makeup brush as her model. So you can see this toward the right-hand side of the board and off to the left. So this is one of her models, was a makeup brush. Her other, which you're not seeing clearly here, was a pool noodle that she sculpted into a model form. So again, our students were super creative. And we as designers need to find ways to articulate our ideas and vision to our audience. Gabby did a great job with this, and I think this goes right back to the quote by Lee Edelcourt. Our students often map or illustrate their textiles into an end use. So in textile design, our students are tasked with creating the textiles themselves, not necessarily the end products. Obviously, some of our students do create garments, and occasionally some of our students collaborate with perhaps industrial designers to make upholstered furniture. Some of our students, depending on their backgrounds, if they're in the graduate program, might come in with a fashion design background and choose to make garments. But a lot of times our students learn to use digital tools to map or illustrate end uses. So in this particular case, we're seeing Gabriel Ortiz's four of his thesis fabrics, 2 that are shown as apparel, and 2 that are shown as artwork and or sculptural installation pieces. So this was how he envisioned his collection, and using digital tools allowed him to showcase it in that manner. Jake White also utilized mapping to show the end use of his printed collection, which was inspired by fungus. I would say, who knew fungus could be so lovely, but clearly Jake did. So here, of course, we're seeing a balaclava style mask. Certainly we're seeing more and more masks actually physically, but also in collections and how students envision them. Of course, some of our students do create actual garments. This is one garment from Hannah Beckett's collection, and I will speak later on about how you can access more of our students' work. Anna Odiot utilized both actual and mapped garments to illustrate her collection vision. Here again, great tropical vibe. I will let you look at the slide and see if you can determine which things are actually printed and cut and sewn and which are digitally mapped. In case you want to know, because perhaps you're looking at it closely and trying to determine this, in case you want to know, the sarong skirt toward the left-hand side, the olive sarong skirt, is an actual skirt. All of the other pieces are digitally rendered. So the same is true with this collection entitled Metamorphosis by Olivia Pagnotta. So here again, we have an actual garment and we have digitally rendered garments. Ollie pursued her color vision primarily in knitted, but also in woven textiles. And the move to woven textiles was, to a great extent, because of the move off campus. It changed the equipment that Ollie had access to and really strengthened her collection overall. So although I think if she was here to speak about herself and her work, she might say she's a knit designer, but I would say that she's a textile designer with a brilliant eye for color. And it's not limited to one particular platform. Thankfully, I think you can tell what is real and what is creatively illustrated on this collection entitled Psycho Fungus by Nick Hammerschmidt. Again, it's all about our students using the tools they learn in the design process to fulfill their vision. So here, Nick created a very complex collection, certainly with digital prints, but also with woven textiles that were overdyed and with some tufting. He certainly sees it as a fashion collection, and you can see his work on shirts, pants, jackets, and shoes. So wonderfully colorful, a lot of great color movement and texture, and the creative illustration of the heads. Elena Garrido created a print design collection entitled Ordinary Magic. This was aimed at encouraging and empowering high school students. You can see one of her designs is illustrated on the wall of the high school on the lower left, and also illustrated on the garment on the upper right. So her collection started with drawing, with painting, with watercolor work, wonderfully talented artist, and centered it around this theme of empowering high school students, which for those of us who can remember, could be a tough age. And the last collection that I'm going to show you today is this print collection by Sonia Borowski. Sonia was inspired by pollinators, or perhaps by the challenges that pollinators are faced with in terms, meaning extinction. So each of these products on this slide were digitally illustrated to showcase her desired end use. These are very complex prints, and the digital rendering is not easy. I think she did a brilliant job of this. I chose these to show you, but she also showcased her collection on aprons, on tool belts, all sorts of things surrounding what one would use in the garden and or outdoor furniture. So a collection really geared toward outdoor enthusiasts. These are perhaps the more cheerful patterns in the collection. There are some that showcase more of the challenges that pollinators are faced with. So what this is it's the culmination of the creative design process, from inspiration through sketchbook development, through croquis stage, through the iterative process of designing, refining, resolving, curating. Those are great skills for our students to have. And then culminating in a collection. And as a shout out to our students and faculty, the path forward involves staying connected. And one way that we did that in the spring semester was through a weekly drawing plus Zoom evening. This was the brainchild of Textile Design faculty member Megan Kelly. Here you can see some of us hard at work on whatever drawing assignment we've been given. It was, when I first heard about this, I thought, who's going to be available on a Friday night at 8 o'clock for this? Of course, we all were available because none of us was leaving our home. So it was a way to keep our students connected and very low key, very low stress, and just a joyful process. So with that said, thank you. Thank you for your interest in textile design at Jefferson. The thread starts here. So please follow us on social media. Check out the work by our students on our school's online magazine, which is Jefferson Aspire. That's the link at the very bottom. So that will give you a great opportunity to see the work of all of our graduating seniors or graduating students, our most recent alumni. But also, please follow us on social media, check out the blog, check out our Facebook site, etc. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jen to see if there are any questions. I'm going to start my video and stop sharing my screen.
We have 4 questions at the moment, 5, another one just came in. And so to be fair, we'll start with the first one. So some of these may seem a little out of context as they were asked earlier in the presentation. I would like to ask how much time is put into making a completed textile piece?
That's a brilliant and really tough question to answer. It varies a lot depending on what it is. Because it's an iterative process, we generally don't feel like the first sample, the first test, the first trial is going to be the most brilliant, the most successful piece. So I don't know that there's one straight, easy answer. I would say that with a general course, so with a typical course, we would have students create, at the undergraduate level, we would have students create 3 collections over the course of a 15-week semester. So that means about 5 weeks per collection. So they're spending the first week doing research, looking for inspiration, pulling together a concept that makes sense, looking at what opportunities there are, what problems they might be trying to solve, and then diving into sketchbook development and into ideation. So it goes fairly quickly. I don't think there's a really easy answer, but I would say typically our undergrads do three full collections per course per semester.
Thank you. Our next question: do all textile design students create garments for their thesis, or do they have the option to innovate their designs another way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So some of our students do create garments. I would say that most of them who create garments are focused in knitwear. We have brilliant knitwear faculty members who are of course on this meeting today, who teach our students the techniques and tools that they need to be able to develop garments. But it's also important that at least half of our students don't go into fashion. They go into home furnishings, or they go into bedding or wall covering. So they might do home furnishing upholstery fabric, they might do wallpaper, they might do biomedical textiles. So there's a wide range of end uses our students can pursue. And for those, in those cases, they are almost always illustrating or mapping their textiles into an end use, as opposed to physically making the final product.
Thank you. Our next question: how does textile design differ from fashion design?
Oh, thank you. So textile designers create every textile that you live with, every textile that you come in contact with every day. So the textile designers are creating the textile itself. So it's what fiber, what color, what pattern, what texture, what finish. So whether it's carpeting or upholstery or bedding or sheets and towels, or if we think about repeating design, it could be gift wrap, it could be wallpaper. One of our alums who is joining us, here's my little plug, our alum Jess Thies, who's joining us on Wednesday. Part of her responsibilities includes textile jewelry. So there are many different end uses. So some of our students do end up in some part of the fashion apparel industry, but many go into other facets of our industry. And that's one of our opportunities as faculty, is to help them realize the wide range of opportunities. I think that we as faculty, if we have helped our students see that there are many different opportunities, if we can help them identify what they love, then we're doing our job.
Thank you. Next, this is a two-part question from one of our alumni. How do you foresee the interaction between students and industry members interacting in the future? Do you see a decline in internships? And then a comment: I think a Zoom drawing session with some industry and alumni would be fun.
Oh, okay. So let me first go to the comment. I agree. I think a Zoom drawing session would be fun. And I'm looking at Megan's picture to say, okay, Megan, we need to make that happen. So I think that's a great idea. Hey, Megan, yeah? Okay, we're getting a thumbs up from Megan. Great. So we will put that on our immediate to-do list. So the interaction with industry. The textile design programs have always been very closely connected to industry, and all of us have different industry backgrounds, different experiences with industry, whether it's through research or through years of working in the industry, both for Jen and myself. So those connections are critical and important to who we are as a program, so that our students understand the application of what they're learning on campus. They get so much more out of internships and out of industry-sponsored projects. We do a lot of sponsored projects where industry members, and that's actually how Jen came back to us, was through an industry-sponsored project. So we do a lot of sponsored projects where industry bring us real-world problems, or more open kind of creativity, here is every 2 years we do a project with Sunbrella, which has been fantastic, where Glenn Raven gives us a bank of yarns and our students can do anything they wish with those yarns. The only limitation is they must use those yarns. So it can be any combination of processes that is possible. And it can be hand processes, digital processes, industry standard processes. They're looking at the work the students are doing as what's next. So these kinds of opportunities they extend our students' networks. They bring real world opportunities to campus and are really critical to who we are programmatically. It's part of what we always say is important about why you would come to us for the education. With internships, obviously now, because of COVID-19, things have changed. And even with our industry engagement, things have changed. But there's so much we can do remotely, so much we can do via Zoom or other similar platforms, where in some ways we can bring more guests to campus now because of this than perhaps we could, because we were always thinking about who can we get on campus. But now maybe the industry expert is in Paris and maybe they can join us via Zoom as opposed to showing up on campus. So I see great opportunities to extend that network for our students. With internships, we do have some students doing remote internships this summer. We reached out to our Textile Design Advisory Board. If any of you are on the call, you know how important you are to all of us. Thank you. So we reached out to our board members and said, are there internship possibilities that we can pursue remotely? And here are some things that perhaps an intern could do for you remotely. So we did have, we had some board members take us up on that opportunity. And it's a new world. And this is the world that we are preparing our students for. Jen, did I get all parts of that question?
I think you did, and there's a follow-up question. I know my internship experiences were so impactful, and I'm curious how this will change during our current conditions for students.
Yeah, and so we're looking at what are the opportunities remotely. It's encouraging that we had companies reaching out to us for both interns and full-time employees, even after we went remote. So even after the COVID aspect really sort of kicked in, we still had companies saying, we need your textile designers, and we're still looking at the opportunities moving forward. Despite the craziness, despite the economic challenges, we know this is not easy for anybody. We know it's not been easy for any companies, but we are preparing our students to be productive members of your teams, whether they're physically there or whether they're still on our campus. So don't forget us. When you have internships, don't forget our students.
Thank you. The digitally rendered garments and objects are impressively well done. What software was used to create them, and how much time is put into digital rendering?
Becky, hop on. Becky is our brilliant digital person, and she does the most teaching in this realm. So Becky, go ahead and hop on.
Hi, this is Becky. I would say we start our students with the Adobe suite because it's the most approachable, but then students can move into other 3D rendering software as they feel more comfortable. So we begin with, taking photographs, scanning, working them into Photoshop, editing, and making them the right scale and dimensions for the pieces that they're mapping onto. And then we get progressively more complicated as their skills build. Thanks.
Thank you.
And truly, with the way Becky teaches it, it is a matter of layering the skills one upon another. And so the students take it in and learn it and use it. And if there are multiple ways to do something, the students find the one that's most comfortable for them. Becky helps them find their approach to it. And again, this is something that we hope to be back in the studio with our students in the fall, because the students learn so much from one another, as we do from them as well.
So we have 15 minutes left, and we still have 7 questions to go through. I thought a little benchmark might be helpful.
Thank you.
Marcia, what have you been doing to stay creative at this time?
I would hop up and grab my sketchbook, but you probably don't need to see me hopping up from the table. So I keep a sketchbook. Obviously, nobody is grading my sketchbook, although I'm happy to hand it over to my colleagues if they would like to grade it for me. But I had a major project on my loom here at home, which I thankfully had the time to weave off. So that was super exciting. It was a combination of loom controlled and hand tapestry techniques. So I was very happy to have the time to really explore that fully. I find I need time and space to be able to sort of process and think creatively. So I've had the opportunity to start really thinking about the next collection that I'm going to create. For those of you who know my work, I do ikat, primarily linen and mostly warp ikat. So I've started some sketches for the next collection, and we'll sort of see where it goes. So thank you for asking. I think we each need to find a little time every day or a big block of time once a week, like whatever works for you. I find we spend so much time now staring at our laptops, so much time staring at screens, that I'm really even more happy to do things with my hands. So I taught some friends via Zoom. I taught some friends how to knit. So that's been entertaining. And there's nothing like trying to teach somebody the basics of knitting via Zoom. So figuring out where the camera is and where your hands are and where the needles are. Yeah, it's just, I've been enjoying having some time to pursue some of the creative things.
Thank you. Any tips on staying inspired during this time?
Oh, just keep going. Get out of your head and start working with your hands, which is why we seriously hope you will join us Tuesday and Thursday for our hands-on activities. These are two of our current undergraduate students are going to share their creative processes with you. I cannot wait to see what they share. I think you just need to do things. I've been working on a sketchbook project for the Sketchbook Project, those of you who know the Sketchbook Project in Brooklyn. So I've been working on a sketchbook to submit for that. I find that I'm just trying to do more and more creative things and spend less time typing emails. No offense in case my boss is on the line.
No question here, just wanted to say hi, and I loved seeing what the current students are doing, and then in all caps, they're amazing.
They are amazing, and they really stepped up. I mean, this transition, it's been hard for everybody, and for those of you who are, we're all dealing with this some way. For those of you who are dealing with this with specific challenges in your personal lives because of it, our hearts go out to you. I am fortunate because I've been healthy. I'm still getting to do what I love. I just can't be with my peers and with our students, but our students really stepped up. They even found ways to support each other remotely. So two of our students who might be on, I don't know, hi, Gabby and Sabrina, they had virtual coffee maybe 2 mornings a week because they would typically meet on campus and go have coffee. So they would meet via Zoom or something like that, FaceTime maybe, and have coffee 2 mornings a week and talk about what they're working on, talk about their projects. So I think it's a matter of everybody finding their support system and staying as connected as possible. I've heard great stories of families that are actually more connected now because they're Zooming, or using Collaborate or FaceTime.
How complex is the computer software used to design fabric designs? Has it gotten less complex to use over time? What software do you use?
Yeah, we teach a range of software platforms. Becky already spoke about the fact that the Adobe suite is important, of course, to our designers. It's important to every designer everywhere, I would say. And then we teach a lot of textile CAD specific software, EAT and Pointe Carré for wovens. There is specific software that is proprietary with Shima and Stoll. We also teach Net Graphics, WeavePoint. So depending a little bit on the platform, we teach different software. Is it complicated? Sure, it's really complex. Most of the industry software was created for industry, so it has all of the bells and whistles. We might not teach all of them, or we might not teach all at the first level or in the first class. We teach what the students need and what they're going to kind of be able to take in at one point in time. What I can tell you is from when I teach Jacquard, which is woven advanced kind of woven textile design, which can be image-based. And just FYI, I'm having a Zoom moment. One of my cats is now screaming in the background. So there is not a baby being tortured, just FYI. So when I taught Jacquard, what I would tell the students is by midterm, they would be faster on the software than I was, which is true. Our students, it's generational. They pick it up quickly, which is fantastic. And once they learn one software, they can learn another. I don't know that they've gotten more complex or less complex. I think that students, because they have been around computers from when they've probably started to walk, they pick it up very quickly and succeed really well. Our freshmen, one quick story, I'm watching the time. Our freshmen in Becky's Textile Design Ideation class, for their final presentations, included animation in their presentations. They're brilliant. I am so excited to see what this class of students does when they're graduating in 4 years.
Thank you. Are we able to incorporate textile design into architecture?
Yes. So certainly there's a whole body of work around textile architecture or textile inspired architecture. We're talking about building skins. Ki-Hong Koo is a professor of architecture on our campus, and we collaborate regularly with Ki-Hong's students, sometimes on things that are about virtual buildings on campus, and sometimes there are projects, they're tasked with projects that neither one of them has the direct skill set for. So for example, a year ago for Design Philadelphia, our students collaborated to make kites. Our architecture students don't have a background in kite making. Our textile designers don't have a background in kite making, but they could each bring their structural skills and their technical textile skills to the project. So yes, certainly there are opportunities such as that.
Thank you. Does Jefferson offer any business classes to help students who have a collection they want to take to market?
We have so certainly there are business classes, and there are entire business degrees. There's a fashion merchandising and management degree at the undergraduate level, and there's a global fashion enterprise, which is the business of fashion degree at the graduate level. So certainly there are entire programs, and students could pick up a course from one of those programs. There's also the Blackstone Launchpad, which is an entrepreneurship center on campus, which is designed to support our students who are creating new businesses and are looking at how do they take them to market. So the Blackstone Launchpad is a wonderful opportunity for our students.
Thank you. Do you ever offer classes for non-design students to get a hands-on intro into areas such as textiles?
We do, so we do a number of things. There are times that we offer during the regular semester a hands-on course for non-textile design students. So I'm going to be honest, we haven't offered one of those very recently. We also do have done summer workshops for non-textile designers. It could be like a 5 or 6 week weaving workshop, or a week-long "This is Textile Design" workshop, which this, obviously this is our first webinar series, but we certainly do run programs primarily geared. Our summer workshops are primarily geared to high school students to expose them to the amazing range of what textile design is and can be. But we do also run certain short courses in the summer. We've held a Jacquard workshop that was a week-long intensive for people without a textile background. We've held digital printing workshops. So yes, from time to time we do.
And just to add to that, we've also got a textile design minor that's that's new. It's a 4-course series in the discipline.
Yes, thank you for that, Jen.
You're welcome. As an alumna in the 70s, the US textile industry was extremely dominant. However, the textile industry largely moved overseas now. How does the school secure positions in the textile industry for students after graduation now?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I, as Jen outed me at the beginning of this, I'm an alum from '83. So yeah, the industry is very different today than it was when I graduated. What is true is that for the design students, the design jobs are where the market is. So if you're designing for the American market, 9 times out of 10, those design positions are still in the US. The companies that hire our designers perhaps have changed. So it might be Nike or Abercrombie and Fitch or Under Armour, but it's also people like Glen Raven and Valdez. So the kinds of companies, I worked for Burlington Industries, which was a large textile manufacturer. That was my primary career. That kind of company, well, today, Valdez and Glen Raven, right? They're the two biggest U.S. textile manufacturers. So the jobs are somewhat different, but our designers are still in demand. We have an excellent career services center on campus with whom we work very closely, both for positions that are locally based, regionally based, and nationally based. So thankfully, prior to the pandemic, the job market was quite good. None of us knows what this is like today and what it's going to look like a year from now.
Thank you. So we have just a few minutes. So real quickly, we have 2 more questions and 3 comments. So I'll just read the comments. Great presentation from Tad and Sandy Schwab.
Hi, Tad and Sandy.
Beautiful work from current textile students. Thank you for continuing the textile school. And for our last 2 questions, do you think the students will be able to use the studios in the next school year? I know it's tough to determine, but are there conversations about alternative setups?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so our plan as a university, we announced very early on that we would be returning to campus in August. This, of course, is dependent on the city of Philadelphia reopening and guidance that we get from the state as well. But our plan at this point is to return to campus in August for classes, and we'll teach with social distancing and masks, of course, which will be new for all of us. Just keeping us 6 feet apart is going to be a really joyful challenge, but we really want to be back with our students, and we know our students really want to be back as well. So we are looking at smaller class sections to allow for social distancing. We're looking at hybrid models where we may be on campus with some of the students on one day and the other half of the class perhaps is remote, and then vice versa. But yes, we plan to be on campus for the first day of class on August 24th and hope to remain on campus right up until Thanksgiving. We have announced that we will work remotely following Thanksgiving till the end of the semester so that students don't have to travel home and then travel back. So we all really want this. So everybody, do your part. Wear a mask when you're outside.
Hey, we have 1 comment that just came in, and so I'll read that first and then the last question. Please consider continuing ed courses online for adults with textile degrees hungry for a community of artists and creative inspiration.
Great, thank you for that. And we're going to add that directly to Jen's list.
Half of it is already on there.
Yeah.
Oh, we have an I agree.
Yeah.
Is there a fashion program at the school?
Yes, we have a brilliant undergraduate fashion design program. We have a great fashion merchandising and management, which is the business supply chain side of fashion at undergrad. And at the graduate level, we have global fashion enterprise, which is the business side of fashion at the graduate level. And the fashion design management program is a graduate degree that's in partnership with Milan Polytechnic. So those are the cornerstones of our fashion offerings at the undergrad and graduate level, and they're all really fantastic programs.
Thank you. So that's all of our comments, that's all of our questions, and that's it for today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. for our second installment, which is a hands-on workshop, Paper Practice with Natalie Bouchard. It's not too late to register, and we'll have webinar segments every day this week beginning at 4 o'clock. The best way to learn more about us, we always say, is to come visit us and see what we do. In these times, we know that's a little bit challenging because we're not even here. So please follow us on social media at Textile Design at Jefferson. And for those of you who might be interested in that alumni/industry Zoom drawing event, that's an excellent reason to follow us, to look for those announcements. You could also email me directly at jen.rhodes@jefferson.edu. So thanks again for watching. Have a great evening. We hope to see you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.